everyone, in this video we are going to discuss 4 measures of the spread, also called dispersion, in data. These are all ways of describing how variable or spread out the values are in a data set. We'll look at 5 of these: variance, standard deviation, interquartile range, coefficient of variation, and range. Let's start with the simplest one, range. The range of a dataset just refers to the minimum and maximum values. It tells you what the extremes are. An example of range on test grades could be 0% to 100%. Next, let's look at variance. The variance of a dataset is the average of the squared differences from the mean. To calculate the variance, you will need to calculate the mean, or the average of your set of values. Then, for each of the values in the dataset, subtract the mean, then take the output and square it. Lastly, you need to take the average of those squared differences. Let's look at height differences as an example. Say that you have just taken these 5 people's heights. The first step is to take the mean. After calculating the mean, we find that the mean is 160 centimeters. So now, looking at this graph again, this is where the mean lies. Now, we find how much each person's height differs from the mean of 160 centimeters. Lastly, to find the variance, we take each of these values, square them, and divide by the number of individuals. In our case, this is 5. So, the more spread out the values are from the mean, the larger the variance of a dataset will be. Next is standard deviation. Standard deviation is defined as the square root of the variance. The advantage of standard deviation is that it is expressed in units that are the same as the original measurement. So in our height example, we would just need to square root the variance, and the units would be expressed in centimeters. Now, what happens if you want to compare the spread of 2 samples that differ in magnitude, or even 2 datasets that use entirely different units? One way that we are able to do this is by using the coefficient of variation, often denoted as CV. The coefficient of variation is defined by expressing the standard deviation as a percentage of the mean. A low coefficient of variation means that these samples are more consistently the same. The last measurement of spread we will cover is the interquartile range, or IQR. The interquartile range is the difference between the 25th and 75th percentile. To determine the interquartile range, we sort the values in the dataset and then identify the 25th and 75th percentiles. Then we calculate the 75th percentile minus the 25th percentile. Let's look at an example of finding the interquartile range. Suppose we have this dataset with 8 values. We'll use the definition of percentiles such that the 25th percentile is the position in the data that is greater than 1/4 of the dataset. Here, that would be in between 22 and 24. And the 75th percentile is greater than 3/4 of the dataset. Here, that would be in between 41 and 43. Therefore, our interquartile range is 42 subtract 23. So our interquartile range is 19.